Invited my parents to a housewarming to give them this house. But they refused to come, saying, "Us, you are our main disappointment." So I revealed my secret. The next morning, they were standing on my doorstep with boxes. My name is Deborah, and for the past 3 years I've been working myself to the bone. Overtime, weekends, holidays, I took it all. My coworkers thought I was crazy, always volunteering for extra shifts and never taking vacations. Some gossiped that I was trying to escape a failed relationship. Others speculated I was saving for some exotic trip around the world. None of them knew the truth. I was saving for a house, not for me, but for my parents. Mom and Dad have lived in the same rundown place for almost 30 years. It's a small 2-bedroom house with peeling paint and creaky floorboards. Every time I visit, Dad complains about something new: the noisy neighbors who moved in last year, the pothole on their street that the city never fixes, or how the nearest grocery store is a 15-minute drive away. I'd sit there, smiling to myself, imagining the day I'd hand them the keys to a new house. A nice place in a good neighborhood with friendly neighbors and smooth roads. A place where they could enjoy their retirement without constant aggravation. My younger sister Claire never seemed bothered by our parents' situation. At 2007, she lived with her boyfriend Todd in a rented apartment downtown. Claire had bounced from job to job since college, always chasing the next big thing. Her latest obsession was starting her own business, though she never quite figured out what kind of business it would be. Every Saturday, our parents hosted family dinner. These dinners always followed the same pattern. Mom would cook something that took all day, Dad would pour wine that was too expensive for their budget, and Claire would dominate the conversation with her latest ideas. "I'm thinking of launching a line of organic dog treats," she announced at one dinner, waving her fork enthusiastically. "The market is practically untapped." Mom and Dad put down their utensils, leaning forward with rapt attention. I sat there, pushing food around my plate, waiting for a pause to mention my own news. "I got promoted to senior financial analyst," I finally said when Claire stopped to take a breath. "It comes with a substantial raise and better benefits." "That's nice, dear," Mom said, her eyes already drifting back to Claire. "So Claire, would you bake these treats yourself?" It didn't even sting anymore. I'd grown accustomed to being the less interesting daughter. Claire was the creative one, the free spirit, the one with big dreams. I was just the reliable one with the steady job who always helped with the bills. And I did help. A lot. When Dad needed dental work that their insurance wouldn't cover, I wrote the check. When their water heater broke in the middle of winter, I paid for the replacement. When Claire needed seed money for her handmade jewelry business that lasted exactly 3 months, guess who funded it? But despite all that, I kept saving. Every bonus, every raise, every tax refund went straight into my house fund. After 3 years of living like a hermit in my cramped apartment, eating ramen noodles more often than I'd like to admit, I finally had enough for a down payment. I reached out to my friend Melissa, who worked as a realtor. "I need a house," I told her over coffee one day. "Not for me, for my parents. Here's what I'm looking for: good neighborhood, preferably with older residents, close to shops and medical facilities, no busy streets, and definitely no neighbors with motorcycles." "Tall order," Melissa said, but she took notes and promised to start looking. While Melissa hunted for the perfect house, life continued as usual. I worked, I saved, and I attended Saturday dinners where Claire announced her latest business idea. Now it was custom-painted sneakers, while our parents hung on her every word. At one of these dinners I couldn't help smiling to myself, knowing I was getting closer to my surprise. The down payment money was ready, and Melissa had a few promising leads. "What are you grinning about?" Claire asked, interrupting her monologue about shoe design. I blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, just got some good news at work. Another promotion." Claire rolled her eyes dramatically. "God, Deborah, you're so easy to please. A pat on the head from your corporate overlords and you're grinning like you won the lottery. Meanwhile, I'm working on becoming independent. Todd and I have been developing a business plan for a boutique marketing agency. Once we get it off the ground, we'll never have to answer to anyone again." Mom leaned forward eagerly. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. How much would something like that cost to start?" Claire casually twirled her fork, "Around 200,000, give or take." Mom gasped, "That's a lot of money. Where would you get that kind of money?" Dad asked. Then, as if choreographed, they all turned to look at me. I felt my face grow hot. "What?" "Well," Mom said carefully, You've been doing so well at work, with all those promotions and bonuses you're always mentioning. I don't have $200,000 lying around, I said flatly. Claire snorted. Of course not. You never want to help me. You just like to lord your success over everyone, while keeping all your money to yourself. I've helped you plenty, I shot back before I could stop myself. Remember your jewelry business? Your food blog? Your photography studio? I invested in all of those. And what happened? They all failed within months. The room went silent. Claire's face turned scarlet. She pushed back from the table and ran to the bathroom. When she returned 15 minutes later, her eyes were red and puffy, and she didn't speak another word to me all evening. Mom and Dad kept giving me disappointed looks, as if I'd kicked a puppy instead of stating facts. I'm sorry. I finally said, just to break the tension, I should get going. I drove home feeling like garbage. Was I being selfish? Should I give Claire the money instead of buying a house for my parents? No. I decided Claire had proven time and again that she couldn't stick with anything. If I gave her that money, it would vanish into another failed venture. Besides, this house wasn't just for my parents. It was for me too. It was proof that I mattered, that my hard work meant something. A month passed, and I threw myself into work even harder than before. The sting of that disastrous dinner faded as Melissa sent me more and more house listings. She was a godsend, filtering properties based on my specific requirements and scheduling viewings around my hectic work schedule. This one's promising, Melissa said one evening, showing me photos of a single-story ranch house with a neat front yard. 3 bedrooms, renovated kitchen, quiet cul-de-sac with mostly retirees. There's a grocery store and pharmacy within walking distance. I scrolled through the pictures, imagining Mom and Dad there. The kitchen had the farmhouse sink Mom always wanted. The backyard was small but manageable. Dad wouldn't complain about mowing it. The master bedroom was spacious with large windows, unlike their current cave-like room. It's perfect, I said, feeling a flutter of excitement. Let's make an offer. The process moved quickly, my credit was excellent, my down payment substantial, and the sellers were motivated. Within weeks I was signing mortgage documents, still giddy with anticipation of my parents' reaction. The house was empty but full of potential. I walked through the rooms, mentally placing my parents' furniture in each space. Mom's antique hutch would fit perfectly against that wall. Dad's recliner would face the large living room window with a view of the quiet street. I'd have to help them move, of course, but that would be part of the surprise. Saturday dinner came around again. I hadn't spoken to Claire or my parents since our argument, but this news couldn't wait. I pulled up to their familiar driveway, practiced my announcement in my head one last time, and stepped inside with a bottle of champagne. Claire was already there with Todd, gesturing animatedly to our parents. When I walked in, the conversation abruptly halted. What were you guys talking about? I asked, setting the champagne on the counter. Claire shrugged. Nothing that would interest you? I didn't take the bait. Actually, I have some news to share. What is it? Mom asked, not looking particularly interested as she stirred something on the stove. I took a deep breath. I bought a house. It's in Oakwood Heights. 3 bedrooms, great neighborhood, close to everything. I'm having a housewarming party in 2 weeks and wanted to invite you all. I didn't mention that the house was actually for them. That revelation would come at the housewarming, when I'd have all their friends present to witness their joy and gratitude. I'd even started the paperwork to transfer the deed to their names after the party. Claire's face flushed crimson. She jumped up from her chair and thrust some papers at me, the same ones she'd been showing our parents when I arrived. How could you? She shouted. Todd and I have been planning our business launch for months. We showed Mom and Dad our business plan today. We need investors and you know it. But instead of helping family, you go and buy yourself a fancy house? I stared at her, dumbfounded. Wait, you actually expect me to fund your business? After all your failed attempts, why would I do that instead of meeting my own needs? Because that's what family does, Claire screamed. God, you're such a selfish bastard. You've always been jealous of me. Todd had the decency to look embarrassed, but he stood by Claire's side as she grabbed her purse. Come on, Todd. I can't stand to be in the same room with her. They stormed out, the front door slamming so hard that Mom's decorative plates rattled on the wall. I turned to my parents, expecting them to acknowledge how unreasonable Claire was being. Instead, Mom shook her head slowly. Deborah, couldn't you have helped your sister instead of spending all that money on yourself? She really needs this chance. Are you serious? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I've helped her with every harebrained scheme she's cooked up. I've helped you with bills and repairs, and now I'm selfish for buying my own house? Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Claire has real talent, Deborah. She just needs a proper chance to prove herself. I looked from one parent to the other, suddenly seeing them clearly. They would always take Claire's side. They would always think she deserved more, no matter how many times she failed, no matter how hard I worked. I need to go, I said, leaving my untouched dinner plate and the champagne I'd brought to celebrate. I drove home in a daze, hurt and angry, but still clinging to my original plan. After all, they didn't know the house was meant for them. Once they realized what I'd done, how hard I'd worked to give them this gift, surely they'd see how much I cared. The surprise would fix everything. The next day, I went online and posted photos of my new house on social media, announcing my housewarming party. I tagged friends, co-workers, even distant relatives, everyone I could think of. The responses flooded in with congratulations and confirmations to attend. I sent a separate message to my parents and Claire, giving them the date and time. No response came, but I wasn't worried. They'd calm down and come around. They had to. This house was for them after all. I spent the next 2 weeks painting, decorating, and preparing for the party. I chose colors I knew my mother would love and arranged furniture with my father's habits in mind. Every decision was made with them in consideration. Then, 2 days before the housewarming, I heard a sharp knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, Claire stood there, arms crossed and eyes blazing. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into my living room. I crossed my arms. "What do you want, Claire?" She paced around my living room like she owned it, running her finger along my bookshelf, examining the framed photos of my college graduation. "I want to talk about that house you bought." "What about it?" "You need to sell it," she said flatly, turning to face me. "Sell it and give me the money for my business." The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, as if I'd definitely agree, made my blood boil. "Are you out of your mind? I'm not selling my house. Especially not to fund another one of your failed ventures." Claire's face darkened. "Failed ventures? What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what you think it means," I said, finally letting years of frustration pour out. "The jewelry business I gave you $5,000 for that lasted 3 months. The food blog I bought camera equipment for that you abandoned after 6 posts. The photography studio Mom and Dad helped you rent that you used twice before deciding photography wasn't your passion after all. Those were learning experiences," Claire shot back. "Every entrepreneur has failures before they succeed." "Right. And how many learning experiences are you entitled to at other people's expense?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You don't get it, do you? You never have. You're so boring and ordinary with your corporate job and your retirement plan. I'm trying to build something meaningful. Something that's mine. But you're too jealous to help me." I shook my head in disbelief. "Jealous? Of what? Your string of failures? Your inability to hold down a job for more than 6 months?" "At least I'm trying," she shouted. "At least I have dreams." "What do you have?" "A cubicle and a sad little apartment. And now a house you'll live in all alone because you can't even keep a boyfriend." That stung. But I refused to let her see it. "What? I'm not selling my house, Claire. Not now, not ever. And I'm certainly not giving you $200,000 for whatever half-baked business idea you and Todd have cooked up." "You don't understand," she insisted, her voice taking on a desperate edge. "This time it's different. We have a solid business plan. We've done market research. All we need is capital. Then get a loan, or find investors who actually believe in your vision, but it won't be me." Claire's face contorted with anger. "You know what your problem is, Deborah? You have no entrepreneurial spirit. You're a follower, not a leader. You'll never understand what it takes to create something from nothing because you're too afraid to try." I'd had enough. "No, Claire, you'll never understand what it takes to actually finish something you start. You don't have an entrepreneurial spirit, you have commitment issues. You jump from idea to idea, expecting everyone else to fund your journey of self-discovery while you figure out what you want to be when you grow up." The color drained from her face. For a moment, She just stared at me, speechless. Then her eyes narrowed to slits. "You're going to regret this," she said quietly. "When my business takes off, and it will, don't come asking for a job." She stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door so hard that the picture frames on my wall rattled. I stood there for a long time, shaking with anger and hurt. Despite Claire's threats, I continued preparing for the housewarming party. I bought food, drinks, decorations. I rented tables and chairs. I even hired a cleaning service to make sure every inch of the house sparkled. The day before the party, my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello? Deborah." My mother's voice was cold. "I need to talk to you about this cruel thing you said to your sister." I closed my eyes and counted to 10. "What cruel thing would that be, Mom?" "You know perfectly well. Calling her a failure, saying she'll never succeed in business. How could you be so heartless?" "I didn't say she'd never succeed," I corrected. "I said she hasn't succeeded yet, and I'm not willing to invest in another one of her attempts." "Well, you broke her heart. She was counting on you. We've always known you were selfish, Deborah, but this takes the cake." "Selfish?" I repeated incredulously. "I've been helping all of you for years. Every time you needed money for repairs, every time Claire needed startup funds, I've always been there. And now when your sister needs you most, you buy yourself a fancy house instead. It's disgraceful." I almost blurted out that the house was supposed to be for them, but something stopped me. "I work hard for my money, Mom. I'm allowed to spend it how I want." "Well, let me tell you something," my mother said, her voice trembling with anger. "You've always been the disappointing one in this family. Claire has talent and vision. What do you have? A boring job and no personal life? You don't even have a boyfriend. You're 30 years old, for God's sake." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Mom, no, I'm not finished. Claire is worth 10 of you. She's creative and brave and willing to take risks. You've always been jealous of her, and now you're trying to hold her back because you can't stand to see her succeed where you failed as a person." Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let her hear me cry. "Is that really what you think of me?" "It's what we all think. Your father and I are absolutely disgusted with your behavior. Don't expect us at your housewarming party. We don't want to see you right now, or maybe ever again." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat on my couch, phone still clutched in my hand, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, something hardened inside me. The house I'd bought with such love and hope suddenly seemed like a monument to my own foolishness. Why had I killed myself working to please people who would never be pleased with me? The next day, the day of the housewarming, I woke up with a new resolve. The house would be mine. I'd live in it myself, enjoy the fruits of my labor, and stop trying to buy my family's approval. As guests began to arrive for the party, I greeted each one with genuine warmth. Friends from work, neighbors from my apartment building, college buddies who'd driven in for the occasion, all were welcome. Only my family was missing, and for once, I didn't mind. After everyone had arrived and had a drink in hand, I clinked a glass to get their attention. "Thank you all for coming today," I said, my voice strong and clear. "This house means a lot to me, but not for the reason some of you might think." I took a deep breath, then continued. "Originally, I bought this house for my parents. I worked overtime for 3 years to save for the down payment. I wanted to surprise them today by giving them the deed." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few people exchanged glances. "But recent events have made me realize that this house should be mine. I've earned it, and I'm going to enjoy living here." The housewarming party continued late into the evening. By midnight, the last guests had left, and I was alone in my new house. The phrase still felt strange but increasingly right. I stayed up cleaning, arranging furniture, and imagining my future there. Around 1 a.m, my phone began to buzz with messages, all from my parents. "Deborah, we need to talk. Please call us back. We may have overreacted. Of course, we'll accept the house." I laughed out loud at that last one. Of course they would. Someone at the party had obviously told them about my speech, and now they were backpedaling furiously. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned off my phone, made up the bed in what was now definitely my bedroom, and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through windows that were mine. I made coffee in a kitchen that was mine. I sat on a porch that was mine and watched the neighborhood come to life. Then I heard a car pull into my driveway. My parents stepped out, each carrying a suitcase. Dad was also struggling with a large cardboard box. They marched up to my front door with the confidence of people who believed they already owned the place. I opened the door before they could ring the bell. "Morning," I said, blocking the entrance. Mom looked past me into the house. "Aren't you going to invite us in?" Dad asked, shifting the box in his arms. "That depends. Why are you here with suitcases?" Mom smiled brightly. "Well, to move in, of course. We got your messages from the party. We understand this was meant to be a surprise for us." I leaned against the doorframe. "Funny, because yesterday you were disgusted with me and never wanted to see me again." Mom at least had the grace to look embarrassed. I may have spoken hastily. "You know how I worry about Claire." "Yes. I know exactly how you worry about Claire. How you've always worried about Claire. How you've never worried about me." "That's not fair," Dad protested weakly. "Isn't it? You've taken every penny I've given you over the years without a second thought. You've watched me help Claire time and again. But the one time I do something for myself, you call me selfish and cut me off." "We were upset," Mom said. "You have to understand, Claire's dream means everything to her. And what about my dreams? Did those ever matter to you?" My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Of course they did," Dad said. "But you've always been so capable. Claire needs more support." "Well, she'll have to get it somewhere else. This house is mine now." Mom's friendly facade cracked. "You can't be serious. You told everyone you bought it for us. And I told everyone I changed my mind. This house is in my name. I'm living here. We're your parents." Mom's voice rose sharply. "You owe us." "I don't owe you anything. Not anymore." Dad set down the box, his face reddening. "This is ridiculous. We'll contest this legally if we have to." "You promised us a house." "I never promised you anything in writing," I said calmly. "And I never told you about the house until after I'd already bought it. Good luck with that legal case." "You ungrateful," Mom started, but I cut her off. "I suggest you leave now. I have unpacking to do." "This isn't over," Dad said, picking up his suitcase again. "You're making a terrible mistake." "The mistake was thinking I needed to buy your love," I replied. "I won't make it again." I closed the door on their shocked faces, locked it, and leaned against it, heart pounding but resolve stronger than ever. Over the following weeks, they tried everything: guilt-trip texts, angry voicemails, flying monkeys in the form of relatives calling to tell me how heartbroken my parents were. I blocked numbers, limited social media, and focused on making my house a home. 6 months later, I heard through the grapevine that my parents had taken out a massive loan to fund Claire's business venture, some kind of artisanal pet food company. The business was already struggling, surprising no one except perhaps my parents and Claire. My house is now fully decorated, exactly as I want it. I've planted a garden in the backyard and joined the neighborhood association. I even started dating a kind architect who lives down the street. So much for being perpetually single. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone through with my original plan. Would my parents have appreciated my sacrifice? Would they have sold the house to fund Claire's business anyway? Would Claire have succeeded with more money behind her? Deep down, I know the answers. My parents would have taken my gift for granted, just as they always had. Claire would have burned through the money and moved on to the next great idea. And I would have been left with nothing but a mortgage payment for a house I didn't live in. Instead, I have this: a home of my own, friends who value me, and the quiet knowledge that I finally stood up for myself. The doorbell rings. It's my date, right on time. As I grab my purse and head out for dinner, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. This is my life now, and for the first time, I'm living it for me.